So first of all, I would like to offer my thanks to Mr. Lee, my guiding teacher for this semester. So I've been doing the observation since the uh, early February, and from from his from the observation within, I have learned the way he conduct the class, and he had shown me the essential element being a good, effective teacher. I really enjoyed working with him, and he have he has taught me a lot how should I be the way a good teacher should be. So I'm very thankful for his help. Well, for the part of the lesson, we were basically doing the the function, especially it was involving y equal to 1 over x. So it's the rational functions. Then the purpose of this is using the inverse function y equal to 1 over x. We are going to show the students how we can make a connection between the concept for direct variation and inverse variations. So the exercise I was implementing is trying to offer students a way to activate their prior knowledge. So consequently, it will help students to know what we are actually doing. So it's very similar to what Mr. Lee was doing the observation from 2 weeks ago. So I found out it's very interesting that we should keep in mind. It is very important that how we can successfully activate students' prior knowledge, so I can use their knowledge and try to push into a higher level thinking. So at the beginning of the lesson, I set up the well, Mr. Lee helped me to set up the equipment and everything. So I was very thankful for that as well. So the way we did this lesson was asking students to sketch the y equal to 1 over x, and I provide students about 5 minutes to write their to construct their writings. So through that exercise, I was walking around to see or to have a informal assessment to see what students need their help. So this is kind of the way I can understand the level of students' understanding. So it's very unique. Then I found out a lot of interesting through this exercise. Well, one thing I found out is that the level of students are very different. So at one side, some students can do this exercise very fast rather than slowly. So I was just wondering what I need to do in order to have students refresh their memories. So I think the lesson is going to be to take a lot of place for they to understand. Okay, so once the exercise was about to complete, I was going over to ask students whether they can understand their work, and I sort of try to think they didn't know this thing at all. So I try to use a very simple language, try to help them to know this concept. As you can see, I was quite nervous when I was taking this this lesson. Well, the reason I was nervous was this is basically the first time I conduct actual lectures in front of a group of students, especially teenagers. I used to be a part-time math tutor, so this is totally different than what I have in my mind. And I need to think a way to prepare in order to take away from my normalness. So I was thinking probably next time if I am conducting this lesson, I should have basically go over this lesson by myself prior the actual learning, so I can see what I need to improve. Then the next thing I want to mention was about the implementation in the classroom. So as you can see, Mr. Lee and I agreed to use the Microsoft tablet to introduce the concept. This technology is very unique because it offers a variety of ways to help students to be engaged. As you can see, I asked students some students to write their answer on a board, while some few students perform their task on a tablet. So one thing I think is interesting is they can use the technology and students will not be getting bored. So they can play the technology a little bit. And once they are familiar with the interface, they should be quickly adopt the usage. Okay. The next thing, when I was writing the lesson plan trying to develop the lesson plan with Mr. Lee, I asked him some question about the ELD students. So he mentioned to me, well, since there are few students in his class who are having limited English abilities. So one thing I need to keep in mind is I need to develop a lesson plan which it should include every level of students. And the most important thing, since I used to be a ELD student, so I should know their struggles, and I should learn how students can understand this, because the most important thing about learning math is how we can use this evidence and develop the academic language in order to persuade people. So I think that is a very important thing to keep in mind. And the last thing I want to tell you about is the lesson plan when I was when I talked with Mr. Lee at the beginning. So he mentioned to me, well, to be a pre-service teacher, I need to develop a lot of lesson plan. So that is not a talent. It's just a practice. So I need to quickly learn how to do it. And once we compile the lesson plan, they can retrieve in our computer or anywhere. So we can, well, as we get more lesson and years of experience, we can be more confident. It's like very similar to what I was talking about the level of the level of experience I am teaching math. So one thing comes in mind is the level is we as a teacher, we need to know the content very well. Also, it is going to help students to master the concept. So we need to look at the assessment. So the assessment I was thinking to do in order to have a better lesson was, well, when I get back to done with the teaching, I was asking myself, how did I did in the teaching? And I don't quite agree. I was doing very excellent job there. So what I want to do next is I want to see how students can learn to make sure students know the lesson. So what I want to do if I am a math teacher in Mr. Lee's class, I want to have a student realize what I want to give their assessment. And lastly, I want to tell Dr. Hassan that providing us a very unique way of learning and give us an opportunity to sense what it's like to teach in the actual math classroom. So I really appreciate the time with Dr. Hassan, and thank you.